Hello and welcome. This just became available today, March 7th, 2025. It is the decision and order on defendant's supplemental motion for admission pro hac vice of Mark A. Betterow. After review of the pleadings, the defendant's supplemental motion for admission pro hac vice of attorney Mark A. Betterow is denied. The affirmation submitted in support of the motion is insufficient on its face. In addition, the proposed concurrent representation involves a conflict of interest that is not waivable under Massachusetts Rules of Professional Responsibility. See Mass R Professional Responsibility Rule 1.7a and b. See also comments 22 and 23. 1. Each conflict is specifically outlined in the motion at paragraph number 8, where Mr. Betterow, apparently speaking through Mr. Yannetti, promises to restrict his use of certain information. The clear inference of the promise is that Mr. Betterow would not use protected information gained in the representation of one client for purposes of his representation of the other client. He thus proposes to ignore information known to him through his representation of one client, even where the information might benefit his second client. The court cannot permit such conflicted representation and declines to add to the defense team that currently numbers at least 4 lawyers, 3 by admission pro hac vice. Order defendant's supplemental motion for admission pro hac vice of Mark A. Betterow is hereby denied. Signed, Beverly J. Kearney, March 7, 2025. And we're going to look up that rule, and we're also going to look at the reactions of supporters online to Judge Bev denying the admittance of Mark Betterow into the Karen Reed defense team. This is from the mass.gov website. I've utilized this website so much while living in Massachusetts. It's funny to see it. And it's funny that I live here, amidst all this blatant corruption. Yeah, okay. And it's Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.7, Conflict of Interest. And if you guys remember in Judge Bev's decision, she cited Rule 1.7, A and B, and she also cited arguments 22 and 23. So we will read A and B, and then we will scroll down to 22 and 23. So letter A under Rule 1.7 reads, except as provided in paragraph B, a lawyer shall not represent a client if the representation involves a concurrent conflict of interest. A concurrent conflict of interest exists if 1. The representation of one client will be directly adverse to another client, or 2. There is a significant risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibilities to another client, a former client, or a third person, or by a personal interest of the lawyer. And if you guys remember her decision, Judge Bev's decision, right here, number 2 actually applies because of what Mark Betterow stated to David Yannetti. And it's this part. There is a significant risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibilities to another client. And again, Mark Betterow agreed to restrict certain information in order to avoid any conflict of interest, but that in and of itself means that it meets Rule 1.7 under A, subsection 2 especially. And then we're going to read letter B. Notwithstanding the existence of a concurrent conflict of interest under paragraph A, a lawyer may represent a client if 1. The lawyer reasonably believes that the lawyer will be able to provide competent and diligent representation to each affected client. 2. The representation is not prohibited by law. 3. The representation does not involve the assertion of a claim by one client against another client represented by the lawyer in the same litigation or other proceeding before a tribunal. That's a mouthful. And 4. Each affected client gives informed consent confirmed in writing. Okay, so letter A and B, guys. Let's scroll down to argument 22 and 23, which Judge Bev cited, and it reads, consent to future conflict. Argument 22, whether a lawyer may properly request a client to waive conflicts that might arise in the future is subject to the test of paragraph B. The effectiveness of such waivers is generally determined by the extent to which the client reasonably understands the material risks that the waiver entails. The more comprehensive the explanation of the types of future representations that might arise and the actual reasonably foreseeable adverse consequences of those representations, the greater the likelihood that the client will have the requisite understanding. Thus, if the client agrees to consent to a particular type of conflict with which the client is already familiar, then the consent ordinarily will be effective with regard to that type of conflict. If the consent is general and open-ended, then the consent ordinarily will be ineffective because it is not reasonably likely that the client will have understood the material risks involved. On the other hand, if the client is an experienced user of the legal services involved and is reasonably informed regarding the risk that a conflict may arise, such consent is more likely to be effective, particularly if, e.g., the client is independently represented by other counsel in giving consent, and the consent is limited to future conflicts unrelated to the subject of the representation. In any case, advance consent cannot be effective if the circumstances that materialize in the future are such as would make the conflict non-consentable under paragraph B. Okay, that's one argument. And argument 23, paragraph B3 prohibits representation of opposing parties in litigation, regardless of the client's consent. On the other hand, simultaneous representation of parties whose interests in litigation may conflict, such as co-plaintiffs or co-defendants, is governed by paragraph A2. A conflict may exist by reason of substantial discrepancy in the parties' testimony, incompatibility in positions in relation to an opposing party, or the fact that there are substantially different possibilities of settlement of the claims or liabilities in question. Such conflicts can arise in criminal cases as well as civil. The potential for conflict of interest in representing multiple defendants in a criminal case is so grave that ordinarily a lawyer should decline to represent more than one co-defendant or more than one person under investigation by law enforcement authorities for the same transaction or series of transactions, including any grand jury proceeding. On the other hand, common representation of persons having similar interests in civil litigation is proper if the requirements of paragraph B are met. So I see where this applies, just the latter part of argument 23, or more than one person under investigation by law enforcement authorities for the same transaction or series of transactions, including any grand jury proceedings. So, and guys, if we consider Aidan Kearney and Karen Reed, their cases are running parallel, but they are connected because they involve similar corrupt individuals in law enforcement, from Canton PD to the MSP, and that both Karen Reed and Aidan Kearney are attempting to expose the corruption within Norfolk County. So it's like, guys, I get it. I get why Judge Bev denied it. I'm not in any way justifying or agreeing with her. But in terms of the black and white word of the law, that's why she denied it, because she knew she could. She denied it, and she cited arguments and rules that essentially defend her argument, and actually they defend her argument well. And I'm saying that objectively. And it's crazy that she will cite rules when she wants to, but she will completely ignore the rules of criminal procedure, right? She will completely ignore Rule 27B when it comes to like the most crucial part, the most crucial few minutes of the trial, when she's declaring the mistrial. You know, like, she will ignore those rules, but when it comes to anything Karen Reed wants, or when it comes to anything Aidan Kearney wants, she's gonna cite some rules to back herself up, to cover her ass when it comes to these proceedings, all these motions, you know, and again, the intention of having Mark Betterow enter the defense team. And I get it. A lot of people are upset about this. But at the same time, guys, Karen's got David Yannetti. She's got Alan Jackson. She's got Elizabeth Little, and she's got Robert Alessi. I'm just saying, Karen Reed is going to be just fine. She didn't really need Mark Betterow. But yeah, I agree with those who say like it would have been like a power team if Mark Betterow was able to join. And I will say, like, there's still a possibility that the defense team can submit a motion for reconsideration, you know, if they find a sufficient enough legal argument for Judge Bev to reconsider. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see if the defense team even wants to appeal her decision or ask for reconsideration. Okay, let's read some comments. Before I read the comments, I wanted to share my favorite selfie that I took with Mark Betterow just a couple days ago on March 5th, right after Aidan Kearney completed his hearing, which was continued to the following day, March 6th. And unfortunately, Aidan Kearney was ordered to stay 100 yards, 100 yards away from D&E Pizza in Canton, Massachusetts, which is Chris Albert's pizza shop. And Aidan was also ordered to stay away from any of the witnesses' homes, like the McCabe's and the Alberts and the law enforcement he's exposing. He was ordered to not be at any of their homes for any reason whatsoever. Yeah, and it's because of the video, unfortunately, Aidan, the night before his hearing on Tuesday, March 5th, Monday, March 4th, that night, Aidan hung out with people at C.F. McCarthy's, I believe it was, next to D&E Pizzas. And I think Aidan was probably tipsy, and so was Will, the glarer. And they were just fucking around and talking shit into the security camera that was at D&E Pizza. And anyway, so I'm just saying it didn't help his case for this week. It did not help his hearing, his motion to dismiss for this week. But ultimately, that decision is still pending. Aidan has to go back to court to have the decision, to determine what the decision is going to be for the motion to dismiss. And unfortunately, there are also other charges pending against him, new charges that came up, witness intimidation charges. So, guys, they are really after Aidan. And I'm just saying, like what he did on Monday night, on Monday, March 4th, with the glarer. Like, I get it. They were just fucking around. But when you have all these eyes on you and you have all these pending cases against you, I'm just saying, like, I'm saying that objectively. I like I'm also putting myself in Timothy Bradle's and Mark Bettero's shoes. Like, this is their client. Aidan is their client. And it's like he misbehaved a little bit, you know? And not that I think Aidan did anything wrong per se. I didn't consider it intimidating or threatening whatsoever. He was fucking around, much like the McCabe's and the Alberts fuck around. Remember Brian Higgins and Brian Albert fucking around at the Waterfall Bar and Grill? We all saw it on CCTV footage, right? Like, they all fuck around plenty, right? They fucked around so much that they killed John O'Keefe, right? But Aidan, Kearney, and Will from the Glare want to fuck around into a camera in front of D&E Pizza, you know? Oh, that's far worse than murder, apparently, right? But I'm saying, like, Aidan, you know, I've talked a lot about Aidan on my channel, and again, I say this objectively. It was not a smart move. It was not a smart move when you know you have court the next day, and again, to put your attorneys in that predicament, like everything needs to be tight. You know, you want a tight case to defend your client. And when your client is going out the night before his hearing and he does something to one of the places in question, I'm just saying, like, I feel bad for his attorneys in a way, because now they have to fight harder for him, you know? So I'm just saying, like, I don't agree with the stay away order. I don't think that Aidan should be kept 100 yards away from D&E Pizza just because he was fucking around outside of D&E Pizza. He didn't destroy any property, you know? He didn't like directly threaten anyone with violence, right? Anyway, I'm just saying, for what Aidan did on Monday night, the punishment to me is a bit much. It's a bit extensive, you know, that basically Aidan can't walk anywhere up and down that entire block, you know? And if he does, then any one of the Alberts and any one of the McCabe's, all they have to do is call 911 and Aidan goes back to jail. All right, guys. And so I'm just saying, like, I don't think Aidan should be walking around timid. I don't think he should be walking around afraid to speak his mind and to advocate for what he knows is right. I think Aidan should continue being brave and exposing the corruption. But I think my hope is that he learned from this, that he was fucking around, but they're not fucking around, and they're going to look for anything, any little reason to lock him back up. And because what happens when Aidan is locked up, you know? He's not reporting as much. He's still able to keep the newsletter going, but he can't do the live streams. He can't go to the court hearings. You guys get it? Like, there's nothing more than the McCabe's and the Alberts want from Aidan than for him to go back to jail, you know? So I'm just saying, like, it's unfortunate that now Aidan has like a new set of punishments, a new, something new to worry about, and yet he still has pending cases against him. But anyway, Mark Bettero is such a kind man, and he's really short, but he's really adorable. He's really great. And he was so kind, like so warm and humble. And he was willing to like take photos with anybody. He was willing to talk to anybody. You know, there's like no ego with this man, which is really refreshing. There's a lot of ego surrounding the Karen Reed case, you know, from different individuals. And I'm just saying Mark Betterow is not, he's most certainly not one of them. Before I read the comments, I know I keep teasing, but listen, Joe Flipperhead made this and it is gold. So he took the video footage of Aidan and Will outside of D&E Pizza, and he put Chris Albert's face on the video, and he used Melissa, what is it? Melissa Elstridge? I don't know. I forget her last name. The singer. God. Okay, guys, I'm just gonna play it because, holy crap, it's and the song is great. You know, Joe Flipperhead, if you don't know, he's got a YouTube channel I highly recommend. Just brilliant work. Okay.
I would dial the numbers just to listen to your breath, and I would stand inside my hell and hold the hand of death. You don't know how far I'd go to ease this precious ache, and you don't know how much I'd give or how much I can take just to reach you, just to reach you, oh, to reach you. Come to my window, come inside, wait by the light of the moon. Come to my window, I'll be home soon.
I just want to say, like, looking at Will's face at times during that video, like, he is genuinely cracking up. He is genuinely laughing. And, you know, again, they were just fucking around. They were probably tipsy, you know. CF McCarthy's, you know, is a bar, and they were probably drinking. I'm just saying, like, they were fucking around. And unfortunately, it cost Aidan some freedom. Like, he's not going to be able to walk in front of that very spot where he was in that video. He won't be able to walk there again, at least until the judge changes the order. So it's unfortunate, guys. And also, like, Aidan's worked so hard. He's worked so hard. And it was punishment enough that he was locked up during the holidays for something he didn't do, you know, because an ex-girlfriend wanted to be deranged against him and keep him from his own children during the holidays. So I'm just saying, Aidan's worked hard enough, and I hope that this doesn't make him scared to keep being daring, because one of the good things about Aidan is that he is daring. He's willing to push the limit. He's willing to go further than other people are. And that's kind of what you have to do when you're dealing with this level of corruption. You know, you can't just be afraid. You can't cower away. You can't be a coward against corruption. You know, so I'm just saying, I hope he remains courageous, and he remains willing to push the limits, you know, but in a way that doesn't involve him getting legally in trouble. That's all. And I know that's hard to do. It's like anything can be used against you in this case with all this corruption. Any and everything can be used against Aidan. And obviously they're doing exactly that. They're using anything and everything against him. So I'm just praying that he doesn't put himself in a position like that again, because he really needs to win his case. He needs to win the cases against him. And he really needs to keep talking about the Karen Reed case, until she is free. So this comment is a response to Judge Bev denying admitting Mark Betterow into the defense team. I have blurred the faces and the names to respect their privacy. The first one reads, "I'm not surprised, but isn't this a violation of her right to choose her counsel?" And pulling away from that, it is Karen Reed's right to choose her counsel. I believe it's the Sixth Amendment. But again, when there's a conflict of interest in the state of Massachusetts, it's a bit more difficult. And Mark Betterow is representing Aidan Kearney. And like I said previously, guys, like, Karen Reed is going to be just fine. Like, she doesn't actually need Mark Betterow. Of course, it would have helped. Absolutely, it would have helped because Mark Betterow is brilliant. But again, she already has a dream team. Continuing. The next comment reads, "I suppose next we'll get the denial of the motion to dismiss and allowing a friggin' TV weatherman to come in and say that the ground was wicked hot and caused the skull injuries to John O'Keefe. I feel broken and hopeless for the first time since following this case." And that's really sad. That's really sad. But I hope this person knows that Karen Reed is going to be just fine without Mark Betterow. It's a hit. Of course, it's a hit. It's not what she wanted. It's not what Mark Betterow wanted. But she's going to be just fine. And so is Mark Betterow. He's still going to be kicking ass representing Aidan Kearney. I'm going to read a few more. The next one reads, how long can this corruption go on? Good job. Next one. "I sure hope the 2 charges get dropped by the federal court. That's somewhat of a smack in the face to Bias Bev." I agree. And Bias Bev she is. Continuing. "Scandalous how fitting she's hiding behind conflict of interest." And the response to that is, right, disgusting hypocrite. And I agree. It's hypocritical for Judge Bev to hide behind conflict of interest when she clearly has numerous conflicts of interest in this case, yet she refused to recuse herself. Continuing. Next one. "This is all so awful." The next one reads, "In my opinion, this is the second decision this week that appears to have a tag team approach, ex parte over lunch." And that's an interesting perspective. And if you guys don't know, ex parte is like a discussion occurring between a judge and one of the parties without the other party knowing, which is unconstitutional. Or like orders being made against another party without that party being able to defend themselves. So it's also unconstitutional. And, I am so sure that Judge Bev has done exactly that. Ex parte motions without the defense, discussing things with the prosecution or discussing things with Michael Morrissey, who, again, if you guys don't know by now, Judge Bev's mother used to work for Michael Morrissey's wife. And Michael Morrissey is the DA overseeing this case. Okay, guys, like she really wants to pretend there's no conflict of interest here. So I'm just saying that comment is probably not far off. There are probably discussions and decisions being made between Judge Bev and the prosecution behind Karen Reed's back. Continuing, "She denied a defense motion. How unlike her." Next one, "I expected that. After the Dr. Crosby Doolittle, I think she will exclude ARCA as well. I cannot believe what is going on in here. She wants a conviction, not a fair trial." I agree. Next one reads, "It's unbelievable." And next one reads, "Not surprised." And going back to this one, Dr. Crosby, he's he's not even a veterinarian, but he studied veterinarian science or something. Like, he's not a practicing veterinarian. He's actually, I think, on his way to becoming a veterinarian or something like that. So, he deals with animals, and not that veterinarians don't know about, human anatomy and what have you, but I'm saying he's nowhere near as compatible. He's nowhere near as credentialed as the 2 PhD experts who testified on the stand from ARCA during the first trial. He's nowhere near as qualified as they are. And he's not even an MD, but Judge Bev is allowing Crosby, and that's what the Doolittle reference, Doolittle, Dr. Doolittle, who was a veterinarian. Crosby is not an MD, but she's allowing him to testify about the wounds to John O'Keefe's arm. And guys, Hank Brennan lied out of his ass and told Judge Bev that they had imprints of Chloe's teeth. Like they somehow obtained teeth imprints of Chloe's teeth, and compared them to John O'Keefe's bite and claw marks on his right arm. Like, it's total bullshit. Like, but he got away with it, as he has gotten away with plenty of other bullshit. Judge Bev doesn't care. So many of us are pissed off at her, and we all have every right to be. She will not take seriously testimony from ARCA, from experts, real experts from ARCA. She will attempt to exclude certain details from their testimony, even though they are more than qualified. But she's going to let Crosby, who's not an MD and not an expert, not a dog bite expert, even though Hank Brennan swears that he is, and again, the methodology that Dr. Crosby used is not a methodology. It's nowhere near the methodology that Dr. Marie Russell uses. Hank Brennan obsessed over Dr. Marie Russell's methodology, and yet she's got far more experience and far more credentials than Crosby. Just amazing. Like, that Hank Brennan wanted a perfect dog bite expert, so he didn't want Dr. Marie Russell, but he's okay with Crosby. Crosby's not even a medical examiner. He's not even like a forensic pathologist. But Judge Bev is going to let him in, and Hank Brennan wants him in, even though Dr. Marie Russell is far more qualified than Crosby. You guys see, like, so that all that arguing from Hank Brennan was a show. Him not wanting Dr. Marie Russell in for the retrial was a show. Because based on his logic, Crosby shouldn't even be permitted. For all the critiquing and criticism that Hank Brennan had for Dr. Marie Russell, it's like, why would Hank Brennan even be okay with Crosby? It makes no sense. I will read just a few more. The next one reads, I knew she'd deny. The next one, I am outraged. The next one, wow, just wow. The next one, she sees it as a conflict of interest with Aidan. These are two separate cases. How about Fanning and the conflicts there? She is so biased. I agree. Continuing. And for all we know, guys, for all we know, Judge Bev knew that Lieutenant Fanning was controlling the jury members. Lieutenant Fanning was speaking with the foreman and dictating what the foreman should and should not write on the jury notes. For all we know, Judge Bev was completely aware of all of that. So I'm just saying she might be able to cite rules and legal arguments to back her denial of admitting Mark Betterow into Karen Reed's defense team. But we all know that she's already corrupt. We all know that she can't really undo anything here with respect to her credibility as a judge. Like, zero credibility. So, when she talks about a fair trial, she's talking out of her ass. She had the chance to give Karen Reed a fair trial, but she was obviously in cahoots, which is why she did not follow the rules of criminal procedure when there are multiple counts against a defendant. Continuing. The next comment reads, it's probably due to Betterow's frankness about her rulings when he was on Young Jerks last year during the trial. And that's quite a good point. Judge Bev most certainly has an ego. She really can't stand to have her feathers fluffed, Like, she's one of those people who just absolutely detests any form of inconvenience. We heard it throughout the trial. The sighing into the mic, the compulsive, impulsive sighing, like every 5 minutes, like everything is a burden to her, Like I said it before, she should just find a different job. She should not be a judge. It clearly makes her miserable. And for as corrupt as she is fucking with people's lives. She is fucking with Karen Reed's fate. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't put it past Judge Bev to be offended by Mark Betterow's opinions of her as a judge, to the extent that she would deny his ability to enter the defense team. The next comment reads, she's unreal. I will read these last few comments and then I will conclude this video. This one has a bit of typos in it, but I think I can figure it out. And it's a really good comment. It reads, I have sneaky suspicion that the judge and prosecution are playing chess. They're making decisions that will purposely make supporters angry. So when the harassment increases, it's an excuse to sanction the defense and possibly not stream the trial. I'm just saying, I wouldn't put it past Judge Bev to do everything wrong in order to infuriate the defense team or infuriate the supporters so that inevitably a supporter loses their shit, and out of safety concerns, Judge Bev says, nope, we're not streaming the trial. Nope, everything's going to be impounded. Right? She would be that judge. She already is that judge. That sort of action from her is like looming. It's just a matter of time. She and Hank Brennan are like partners in crime here. Hank Brennan essentially wants to do the same thing. He wants to piss off the supporters, and he wants to psychologically and emotionally abuse Karen Reed with his constant lying and his constant misrepresentation of facts and his constant gaslighting. It's like Judge Bev and Hank Brennan together are a toxic team. And I'm just saying, I would not put it past either of them to attempt to so infuriate Karen Reed and the defense team and her supporters to the point that, there are emotional responses, which is coined reactive abuse. Like in the psychology community, there is such a thing as reactive abuse. And it's when you're being so abused that you respond by being abusive yourself. So I'm just saying, psychology knows what that is, and this person making the comment knows what that is. And I agree that I would not put it past either Hank Brennan or Beverly Cannoni to be doing all of this strategically, to be creating all of this abuse strategically. Next comment. And she does it while using DY's own words against him, David Unetti's own words against him. And I've noticed that too. Like, she will throw the defense team's arguments back at their face, but she never looks in the fucking mirror. And the next comment reads, she's on a power trip. I agree. You know, Judge Bev is the worst kind of judge to be a judge, to have a position of power over people's lives, because she gets off on it. She seems to get off on the power. And that's like the least person, the least, it's like the worst mindset, the worst personality to have if you're going to be a judge. It's the same if you're going to be in law enforcement. If you get high on power, don't become an officer and don't become a judge. You know, those positions should be reserved for people who pass psychological tests, you know, proving that they, you know, they are humble, they stick to the facts, they are objective, and they don't take shit personally. You know, I've said this for years, that members of law enforcement, the psychological tests that they go through are not enough when so many seem to abuse their power because they get off on it. And so many people are drawn to positions of power. So many people want to be law enforcement, or they want to be a judge because they love power. And again, those are the kind of people who need to stay away from those positions. And Judge Bev is one of those people. It's so clear. No one can convince me otherwise. I can never unsee what I've seen from Judge Bev. Zero credibility from that woman. She is a black widow, and she is constantly spinning her web in the courtroom because she clearly has multiple conflicts of interest in this case, which she continues to protect. Thank you all for watching.